The 12th chapter. All creatures should strive to become the god. Those who do not are food. Naaman. When Fawn was finally released from the doctor's incessant jabbing and poking, she had gained nearly 6 pounds for no apparent reason, and she had some severe pain radiating from her pelvic region. On their way to the districts to find Fawn's brother, Rodella told her that it was from the egg extraction. There would be more pain and bloating, which Fawn could deal with, but what made her wince was that there could be children walking around with her face, children that would never know who their mother was, or did and never cared to know. What troubled her most was that it was only the father that mattered, and only one father, Deicide. He was the only man whose genetic material seemed to be involved in this elaborate breeding program. How did they hope to restart a race with these grossly inbred children? Fawn had asked what Rodella had thought of it, and the woman had only shrugged her well-muscled shoulders. Being one of the many daughters of Deicide, Fawn thought the woman would have some type of opinion on the matter, but she had only curled her lips and raised her eyebrows, as many eaters did when they were indifferent. But just as Fawn had noticed the similar gesture they shared, did she notice that Rodella was missing the antennas and the sharp fingers, though her teeth had begun to sharpen. However, sharpened teeth were an eater trait, and anyone, even those born human, would eventually lose their milk teeth and grow multiple rows like a shark. Fawn was disturbed and fascinated by these personal evolutionary traits people had picked up. How some high-level eaters even began to take on animal-like qualities. On speaking with Rodella, though, she was told that only the most vicious and monstrous of eaters became things of legend. The wars that had turned Hellmouth and the Great White into living gods were mostly gone now, and the scuffles of the districts was the only place where any sort of excitement or advancement in career was to be had, at least according to Rodella. In the time she had been on board, Fawn had come to trust Rodella. The woman seemed to place Fawn's needs at high priority, making sure she would settle in her new quarters, and that she made all of her appointments on time. It was strange that someone of her skill and talent was being used as a nanny. With a few selected moments of careful prodding, Fawn had encouraged the woman to reveal some more of herself. "Was your mother a soldier?" Fawn said. "She was a scout," Rodella said. "They map out the area surrounding the corridor." The corridor was behind a door that led into the bridge of the silent ship, Antikythera, the vessel of the pretender god, the demiurge. The sacred text said that the crew of the vessel was sacrificed to create the Obstrusion people, but the atheistic race the Obstrusions had become said that the crew themselves, humans, were the original Obstrusions, evolved from living on board a starship for millions of years. "It's so dangerous, they don't even let anyone do it anymore. Well, except for the nut jobs, the Sicaris," Rodella said. "Sicaris?" Fawn said. "The ones with the yellow eyes," Rodella said. "They say it's a vestige sickness you never get over. Poisons your brain. You hear voices and see things. They all think Deicide is a god." The women entered the Risk Eater precinct where Fawn's brother was stationed. Half the lights were off. People passed out with their booted feet propped up on cluttered desks. The place smelt of burnt coffee, one of the mildest stimulants accessible to the crew. A senior administrator squinted at the women as they crept in. She hurriedly tried to straighten the personal clutter scattered on her desk. 3-dimensional images of children sat inside clear globes. A digital calendar embedded in her desk was partly obscured by remnants of lunches. A slim cascade of cheddar cheese ran off an old burrito wrapper onto a stained coffee lid, where it lay frozen in a stiff yellow pool. The sides of her mouth pulled into a weak little smile as she greeted Fawn and Rodella. Rodella squirmed a bit, embarrassed by the display, but Fawn grinned as she expected it from a shop her brother was a part of. Over the last few days, she had heard of the famed 001 precinct, ace risk eaters who many thought acted as Deicide's secret police. They were headed by an old eater named Doug Fitch, affectionately known as Dogface in the military community. He was constantly at odds with their seemingly undisciplined and listless behavior. One only had to glance at their quarterly reports, if anyone could find them, to realize the division always recorded unequaled results. "Yes?" the administrator said. The emblem of the Risk Eaters, a star crossed with a sword and shield, hung on the wall behind her. "Alpha here?" Rodella said. "Yep, going back," she said, buzzing them in. The two women traversed the dimly lit office until they came to a crimson-headed man stowing his skid into a locker. He turned toward them with a stupid look on his face, and then beamed when he saw Fawn's face. She attached herself to his neck and let out a loud noise. Fawn immediately began to ask him dozens of questions, giving him little time to answer any of them. Quickly they said their goodbyes to Rodella and headed back to Alpha's apartment, inside the Yola pile. "All this is for you?" Fawn said, twirling around the living room. "This is pretty much standard for lieutenants," Alpha said, throwing his bag into the corner. "This is unreal," she said, making her way to the other rooms. Alpha began to rummage around the kitchen, while Fawn returned with female garments. "Put those back," he said. "She good to you?" she said. "Yeah." "Mom and Dad will be happy," she said, returning the clothing where she found them. "Why didn't you call, Alpha?" she said. "Wasn't allowed, or able to. They kept telling me they'd pick you up sooner or later. And they came through," he said, rummaging through the cold storage before finally retrieving 2 beers. They were cylindrical in shape, but they looked nothing like the bottles and cans human distilleries used. He waggled one at Fawn and threw one her way like a baseball. Fawn was surprised by how light it was. The container seemed as though it would never hold its shape if it was squeezed, but it was remarkably sturdy. "Wow, chain of command telling the truth," Fawn said. "This place is nothing like home. Captain's orders are the word of God here," he said, collapsing on the couch. Fawn followed him into the living room. "So you like what you do?" she said, giving him a hard stare. "Oh, come on. What's that look for? It's not even my job. I'm a cop." "So you condone it?" she said. "It's not like we have much choice," he said. "But maybe my outlook is better because I was recruited. They just came and got you?" "Yeah, I got to meet the captain in person." "What? And he just lured you into his ship like the fucking Pied Piper?" she said. "Actually, for fuck's sake, Alfie, are you telling me you didn't fight back? It's not that simple," he said, sitting up. "The judge awaits your rebuttal," Fawn said, crossing her legs. She took a quick sip of beer. "First of all, he's not like those stuffy Homo Salutem nobles. He's friendly, real persuasive. It didn't make any sense to fight him," Alpha said. Fawn glared at him. She was completely unconvinced. They were members of a proud clan. The Dearborns had been warriors and weaponsmiths for ages. Fawn could not believe her little brother was capable of displaying such cowardice. "Why not?" Fawn said. "He's, like those old stories. The one where people talk to the sky." "You mean the Bible?" "Yeah. He's like one of those crazy prophets." Fawn sighed. "What the fuck? I thought you said he was a nice guy." "That's the scary thing. He really is. He told us he was here to save us, that the universe was going to collapse on itself. And you believe that?" "We had no choice but to believe. He was taking us whether we wanted to go or not." "I'm still disappointed, especially in how you believe you're helping these people." "We are. These people are indentured servants, including you. But for the promise of what? A fresh start in a new world." Fawn stretched out her hands. "This place? Your bachelor pad isn't that nice. Whether you agree or not, Fawn, the universe is dying. I want to be on the side that's doing something about it." Fawn tried to hide her revulsion. She thought herself foolish for even being here. Once again, she and the family she had left were at the whims of a noble. But she supposed it was easier to humor this madman than stand against him. On days Fawn did not have indoctrination training, Alpha took his older sister on tours of the nicer areas on board. Not every district was a metropolis teetering on the edges of failure. There were special districts assigned for crew member housing, entertainment, and leisure. She enjoyed the safe and exciting nightlife of Penumbra and the white beaches of Zephyr. Somewhere inside her, she sensed that these paradises were propped up by something sinister. Food was always fresh and abundant. The air and water were pristine, and crime of any type was nearly non-existent. Such perfection had to be considered suspect to anyone with a fractionally functioning brain. She often imagined that the nobles and those that lived easy in this world would never desire to see the suffering which had made their comfort possible. Pressing her brother harder about the truth, he eventually told her of the problems within the countless district platters that the Yolopile told behind her.